I like to reverse engineer everything. Okay. You need to first start by defining what your story is. If a brand doesn't know who it is, no creator in the world can save them. The best partnerships are not transactions, they're collaborations. You have to work with the creative. Now, when hotels give creators freedom within their framework, you get magic. You get storytelling that feels human, but still reflects the brand's DNA.
This episode is brought to you by Reliance Hospitality Global, where hospitality meets strategy. Whether you're developing your next hotel, need help navigating operations, or you're looking to increase profitability through our expert consulting and business process outsourcing services, Reliance has you covered. From boutique independents to full-service brands, we help owners, investors, and partners unlock value at every stage. Visit RelianceHospitality.com to learn more, and let's build something remarkable together.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Check-In with Bryan. I'm your host, Bryan Fish, and today I'm sitting down with someone whose career has reshaped how the world experiences travel through digital storytelling. Scott Eddy is a true global citizen, a former stockbroker, which we'll get into, who reinvented himself abroad, launched a digital agency in Southeast Asia before the world even was talking about influencers, and went on to become one of the most recognized travel personalities on the planet. His work has taken him across continents, partnering with tourism boards, luxury brands, airlines, and hotels who trust him to tell their stories with authenticity, curiosity, and a contagious passion for people. Scott's perspective on connection, culture, and the business of travel is something everyone in hospitality needs to hear. Scott, I am so happy to have you on the show. Welcome. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Thanks, Bryan. Appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Oh, no worries. What time is it in Thailand, by the way?
It is 8:35 in the evening.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's nuts. Okay.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
The other side of the world.
Scott, just for anyone who's been living under a rock and doesn't either know who you are or doesn't know much about what you do, can you actually describe what it is you do in the global hospitality and travel space?
I do a lot. I would say that the main things that I do is I do influencer campaigns. Obviously, I have a huge audience on social, but I also do social media workshops for hotels, cruise lines, destinations. We do full-on photo shoots, drone photo shoots. We do video production shoots, all kinds of things like that. And then I speak at probably 10 or 15 conferences a year. And
I mentioned it in the very beginning, like you were doing the influencer thing, which I know that that word kind of has a dirty connotation these days. You were doing it before anybody else was doing it. Like it wasn't a thing. Doing the research and stuff on you and talking to people, like it wasn't a thing when you started, right?
It was not. It was not. My life was meant to be a police officer. You know, my dad was a Fort Lauderdale cop. Before that, he was a Michigan State trooper. And I basically grew up in a police car. On the weekends, every day after school, I was hanging out with him, going on ride-alongs, hanging out in the police station. So my life was meant to finish high school, join the police academy, get married, have the 2.5 kids, a white picket fence, retire and die. Like my life was completely mapped out. I had a date to join the police academy 6 months after I graduated high school. And 3 weeks before I graduated, my father was killed in the line of duty in a plane crash, and it turned my whole world upside down. And I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to be a cop. So my friend's friend was a stockbroker in New York. This is 1989. The markets are going through the roof. And he called me and told me that these two guys are moving from New York down to South Florida. They're going to open up their own firm, and they can get me in the training program. And I really had no other option, even though I wasn't trained for that. I was a horrible student. I never went to university or college, but I went reluctantly and I was accepted, and I was in the finance world for 10 years. And looking back, it was probably the best decision I could have ever made because I learned how to sell anything to anyone. And that's a skill that translates over to any industry.
You probably could do all sorts of things at that point.
Yeah, exactly. But the way I got in this business is the guy who sat next to me at the firm, his good friend was an expat working in Thailand. And every time he used to come back to Florida to visit, he used to hang out and get drinks. And he always used to tell me to come visit him. And I always had to say, I work 90 hours a week. I can't take a 24-hour flight. Like the math doesn't work out. So
Right.
they came out of the office one day after 10 years at the firm and said, if you show up on Monday, you're going to have a new owner. We just sold the firm. And this was January of 99. It was a Friday. And half the firm resigned, including myself. And that guy called me on Saturday and said, now you have no job. Come visit me. So I went to go visit him. I bought a 2-week ticket on Sunday, left. And after 4 days, I just loved it. I called my mother. I said, I have nothing to come back to. I'm staying, setting my things. And I ended up living in Bangkok for 11 years. Yeah.
Talk about like just taking a leap of faith, right?
I mean, like the way I look at it is like this. The worst thing that could ever happen to me in my life happened. So what's my downside? My downside to me in my head was nothing. So
it's interesting how that so I lost my dad about 11 or 12 years ago. And it's interesting when you have you go through a loss like that. It's the things you're the chances you're willing to take and the things you'll do. Because I feel like I didn't start to really take chances until after that. So I can totally relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, I was 29 years old. So that was really when, in my opinion, that's when my life started. Let me paint the picture. So I came to Bangkok. I'm loving life. I'm a city guy. So I really love this city. It's energetic. It's chaotic. I call it organized chaos. It's awesome. I did nothing for the first probably 4 years because it was 99. There was no digital. There was no social media. I just traveled around, made a lot of friends, visited everywhere in Asia. And then social media came out and I don't know how much have you spent time in Asia?
I've only been to the Philippines.
However you think social media is compared to the US and compared to the rest of the world, in Asia, it's like on steroids. I mean, it is out of control. Most people don't know this, but 3 out of the first 4 years, Instagram was in existence. The most Instagram place on the planet was Bangkok. I mean, and I was at the epicenter of this. So when social media came out, I was like, hey, I want to stay here, but I got to do something. I can't just continue doing nothing forever. I'm like, what am I good at? I'm good at sales. So I could open up a marketing agency, and all my friends are in the hospitality space because they all own hotels or bars or nightclubs or restaurants. And I was like, okay, so I'll target them. What turned out to be, I started the first digital agency in Asia, and we killed it. So there was it's not that we were the best. We were the only. So we had probably 37 clients in 3 weeks. So we did the first wave of crazy hotels in Bali. We did the Western casinos enter in Macau. We just killed it. Then after 5 years of having the agency and a lot of other agencies were opening up and things like that, then it started to feel like a job. As all I was doing is putting out fires. It was no longer fun for me. So I sold the agency, but I was getting huge on social. So I was one of the first people on Twitter. I was probably first 2,000 people on Twitter. I was the first American expat in every Asian country to have 1 million followers on Twitter, which back then got me front page news, which got me consulting gigs, which got me speaking gigs, which, and it was just a snowball effect. And then I started bouncing around. I spent total 11 years in Thailand, 1 year in Manila, 1 year in Sri Lanka, 4 years in Spain, 1 year in Portugal, 1 year in London, and then I came back to the States. But when I came back to the States, that is when social media got mature. Big companies were applying budgets to it. This was 2015. Immediately, I was contacted by a PR agency who represented a TV show that they wanted to launch on Lifetime. It was a travel show, very similar to Anthony Bourdain, and it was called Video Globetrotter. So I was the TV host for the first travel series on Lifetime. And that raised my brand even more. And I just started doing really big campaigns. Like I've done campaigns for F1, for, all the airlines, everyone like that. And And on top of everything, about 12 years ago when I was living in Europe, I sold everything that I owned. So even though I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, and even when I'm there in between all my trips, but I just have a small storage unit. I'm staying in a hotel now. I'm staying in a hotel if I go to Florida. So I live full time in hotels and cruise ships.
Has that taught you that you don't need as many things in life? Like, I would imagine, like, not having a place to always have it, like, you learn to live without.
Things mean nothing. When I visit like friends' houses or, just anything, like humans as a species, you collect things that are unnecessary.
Right.
It's one thing to collect things for memories or collect things because you want a nice house, but there's another thing to just hoard things and never get rid of things. And I have zero desire. Like when I'm home, I don't want to drive. I mean, my driver's license expired like 3 years ago. It's not been a priority for me to renew it because I haven't driven in 5 years. I take Uber everywhere. What do I need to drive for?
So given the background, being that first person in all those spaces, it's interesting you talk about Asia being the social media, as you were talking, as being the birthplace really of social media taking off. I was thinking about my first trip to the Philippines and watching all the people from Korea that came, and they would just be like posing in front of like everything in the hotel, and you go to the market and they're just posing and taking photos, and they would spend so much time taking photos. So it makes sense to me that would be the place. But how is it, like, what have you seen has been the biggest change since the early 2000s to today in terms of how the digital landscape that you work and live in, how it's changed? What's the biggest thing?
Yeah. So, I would say that the biggest change, pre-pandemic, it was just a race for vanity numbers. You were hopping on trends, you were seeing how big you can get, you were doing anything online just to get attention. What I think the pandemic did, for all the horrible things that it did, I think a couple good things came out of it. It allowed raw, shaky videos to be okay. It allowed the videos that you post, they don't have to be fancy edited and, takes 3 weeks to produce one video. It just allowed you to turn your phone around, look at your phone, talk, and get ridiculous engagement just because the quality is there, not necessarily that you had a video editor polish it up. You know what I mean? So my raw videos that aren't edited that much do much better than my fancy stuff. Now, listen, the fancy stuff, you still have to do it if you're in my world. Tourism boards still want it. Hotels still want it. We still do a lot of the fancy stuff, but I do much more of the raw stuff. And I believe in showing the behind the scenes heavily. I think that showing the human side and showing the workflow of what you do in this business is super, super important.
I agree with that because I think it shows the authenticity of it at the end of the day. And it's not. Well, there are some things that are very produced, and there's some things that aren't. Yeah,
it shows that it's not human. You're not a machine.
Right. Yeah. You don't. There's not a switch that goes on, and you just spew this stuff out.
Exactly.
So, that's awesome. I think that goes. So there's a quote that I read. You've got some great articles on LinkedIn, by the way. But one thing that seems to be a resounding theme is you say that relationships, not algorithms, are what truly open doors. Can you share an example of where a meaningful connection has changed your life or the course of your trajectory in some way over the years?
If you watch when I travel, not the stuff when I'm working with clients, but the other stuff that I post, the stuff that I'm human, I talk a lot about the people that I've met around the world, and these people are basically my family. Yes, I have my real family, but they're my family. They're my given family. These people are my chosen family. I judge places when people say, "Where's your favorite place? Where's your favorite country? Where's your favorite city?" You know, the first thing I think about is who do I have that is friends there, and how close are they to me? That is how I rank the cities, the countries, the places that I go. The first 5 people I met in Thailand are still my closest friends here. You know, it's just these are people that we clicked immediately. You know, they opened the doors to their relationships. I depended on those relationships to take me to the next level. And it just, that's how I view everything in life is relationships. It's the only thing that matters. When I'm filming something, when I'm shooting, taking a photo, when I'm posting something, it's the only thing that I think about in my head, that I just want to make sure that the ROI is there so a relationship could potentially happen.
So, with that said, then how has connecting with, especially these folks that are your chosen family in these different cultures and communities, how has that given you a different perspective in how to communicate, just live within something that you were not raised in, and it's, was essentially foreign to you at some point. I'm sure now it doesn't feel foreign to you at all. But how was that?
It's changed my whole life. Listen, my background was kind of a mix anyway. My father's side is very American. My mom's parents are both from Lebanon. They moved to Jamaica to open up a business. So my mother and all my aunts and uncles were born in Jamaica. So I grew up going to the Caribbean and, that whole mix of things. So it wasn't that foreign to me. If I am somewhere eating a dinner or lunch or whatever, and I'm sitting at a table full of people, I want everybody at the table to be from a different place. I want different opinions. I want different perspectives. I want to know how other people think. I want to, because it helps me. First off, I want to know because I care about these people and I genuinely care. But B, it helps me be a better marketer. After living in 6 different countries, very different countries for 17 years, I feel it makes me a better marketer. I feel it gives me a global perspective that I can apply no matter where I am. We were just right before I was in Thailand, I was at a tiny resort in North Carolina shooting fall foliage on, this resort has 30 rooms on 120 acres. That's very different than where I am right now.
Right.
And I love to bring my perspective from here over there, and I love to bring that perspective over here.
Right.
And I think it's awesome. That's the way the world should be.
It really is, and it just goes to show, we are so more connected than we are ever, disconnected these days. And the reality is, I think cultures, and I'm sure you found this, I think cultures across, at least in my travels, it's everybody really kind of, the core of everyone's culture is the same. It's how each location kind of honors that and how they tell that story. From a marketing standpoint, though, I can see that would be very interesting, because obviously how you would pitch something in Bangkok is not going to be how you're going to do it in Charleston, South Carolina.
No
right?
way. No way.
But the storytelling piece of it, the main arc of it, I would imagine stays relatively the same. It's just about how you push that narrative.
Yeah. So it's the same. It's listen, the level of hospitality is different in every country, and it's not better or worse. It's just different. So you have to understand that. But the storytelling, everybody wants to know what's going on behind the curtains. It doesn't matter what country you're in.
Speaking of hospitable places, what is the most hospitable place that you have found that you visited that you're no, this is the place where they really understand hospitality, they understand people, and you feel like family the minute you get there?
So it's not even close. It's Thailand. I think that Thailand is a school in and of itself for hospitality, because it's not trained. They are born with it. It's inside their DNA. It's funny. I posted an article the other day, or the top 50 hotels, and it kind of went viral on LinkedIn, the post. And I said, there's 20 hotels out of the top 50 that are in Asia. Isn't that funny? And this is why I always talk about how Southeast Asia specifically is the best hospitality in the world. And that just goes to prove it. And then you have everybody just coming out and, oh yeah, because they have cheap labor. And I'm like, I don't understand. So because you pay somebody less, they're more kind and more warm to the guests. Like the mentality, they're just, keyboard warriors trying to like make something happen. But, it proved my point. There's no rhyme or reason for it. I can't put it into words. I don't think anybody can articulately put it into words, but it is a magical experience that you could walk into a hostel and they would be kind to you when you walk in the front door, or you can walk in the Four Seasons and they'll be just as kind.
I'm going to have to get to Thailand. By the end of this, I'm going to have to book a ticket. I've never been, the Philippines I thought was pretty hospitable. It was I would say that's the most hospitable place
Southeast Asia as a whole. Southeast Asia.
But it's that whole area, so.
Yeah.
Now, I hinted at the beginning, influencer is a loaded word, especially in 2025. And it's gone from and I don't even really know what the proper term would be to call these individuals now, but it's social media influence, content creators. I firmly believe it's the hardest job that some people can have. Just having been in now being with individuals like you and other individuals within the business that do this for a living, they don't necessarily see, people on the outside don't necessarily see the hours and hours of work that goes into what they end up seeing online. And it's not it's still a produced business, even the most inauthentic moments sometimes. Even though I will say the video, the reels that I put out, the ones that do well are the ones of me just sitting in the car on the way from point A to point B talking. So, which goes to your point that, the overproduced doesn't necessarily, translate into ROI. But, with the advent of this and with the fact that now everybody, and again, to remind listeners and viewers, it's you went from the space didn't exist to now the space is very broad, very complex, and very accessible. The reality is anybody with a phone of any type at this point can go out and they can essentially put their life online, or they can become quote unquote an influencer or create content. But a lot of it, people don't realize it's not very authentic. And like you mentioned, you like to show what's happening behind the scenes. Do you see that, the people getting into it that kind of, I'll call them the fly-by-night people that just kind of decide they're going to join, they want to be an influencer, and maybe they get 500 followers or 1,000 followers, and they don't really go past that. Do you think that there's a measure of authenticity that is being missed that potentially is influencing the traveling public in terms of they think it's all grand, but they don't necessarily understand? They're only seeing a very curated snippet of either photo or a video where you don't understand what's happened the last 24 hours.
Also, what the pandemic did is the pandemic opened up the floodgates for this industry. So you've had a lot of people come into this world and say, oh, I could just make money online. I don't need my job anymore. That's why a lot of people left hospitality. They felt like they were treated bad for a long time and not paid and not respected well. So they left to start making money online, not necessarily content creators, but doing anything online or other jobs or whatever. The influencer role, when I started, the word influencer didn't exist. Today it's become both overused and misunderstood. The real influencers are the ones who bring credibility, experience, and genuine passion. You can't fake hospitality. If you're not truly invested in the brand or destination, the audience knows instantly. Authenticity is the new currency. And brands that chase vanity metrics instead of trust are missing the entire point.
That's a really good, I like that. Authenticity is the new currency, because it really is. Let's use tires as an example. this may not be the best one, but like in a lot of verticals, you've got like everybody sells the same product or whatever, but it really comes down to the people at the end of the day who are selling it, and then from your colleagues and stuff telling you like what you should be using or what they like to use, and that's an authentic version of referrals where you actually can trust what you're doing as opposed to just having a movie script or something that's written out like we're going to go walk from point A to point B to point C, and
exactly.
This is what we're doing. So do you think that brands have understood that? Because I think it's interesting when I look at the whole landscape, and really even outside of hospitality, I think it's the same way, where you'll see brands go and they go get a bunch of content creators together because they think that's going to like push them forward. But then you do see them either pull back on the strategy pretty quickly, or they don't really do a very good job of rolling that out. Do you think that it's a misunderstood thing, both from the brand's perspective, that whatever brand you're selling as well, where they don't necessarily always understand what it is they're looking for?
The short answer is no.
Okay.
Brands as a whole are dinosaurs, and they move very slow, and they are ridiculously rigid in their own way of thinking. Not to say all brands, because there's brands that get it. Let me tell you, if you ever want examples of brands doing it right, look at junk food. Junk food is awesome because they don't sell junk food. Look at the commercials for Taco Bell, for Burger King, for all the garbage, Oreos,
right.
Like all the garbage food. They don't say, "Oh, come eat our burgers. They're the most delicious in the world." No, they just have fun with their commercials.
Right.
That's
so true.
They sell fun.
They do.
And that is how you have to think as a marketer. Now, if you think at most hotels, they move slow. They need 15 approvals for everything. They don't want to lean into anything new until it's been proven. They don't want to test anything. They're dinosaurs.
Right. Well, and it's so funny as we're talking about authenticity, and as you were talking, I was thinking about it. If you look at like Taco Bell and all of them, like their advertising is always like, it's more about life and like living life to the fullest. Like do this. Like if you eat an Oreo, it's going to change your life. Or if you eat at Taco Bell, it's going to change your life.
Right.
But, and that's, to me, like that's an authentic way to deliver the message. Whereas 100%. I think about it, and I have said this to people before, like you'll see hotel descriptions and everybody wants to say this beautifully, decorated, blah, 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 clean, 115 room boutique hotel. And it's like, well, everyone's just going to assume that it's going to look good and it's going to be clean.
Right.
So why do we lead with that? It's like everybody says it, and because again, especially I think the hotel industry is very much is a dinosaur in that way. We kind of hold firm to our templates,
yes.
And we're like, this is what we're supposed to do. Just plug and play the information we tell you.
And it's the reason I'll have a job until I'm dead.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's not going to as much as we can have a conversation about it right here, and as much as you can go on the road and talk at conferences, and like I've been telling a lot of people this year when I meet with them, it's about telling the story at the end of the day. That's what you're doing. And they just don't get it. They come around to understand it. But again, it's just, it's never going to be a never ending cycle because there's always somebody that's got to be told, hey, like you got to do this.
Exactly.
And it'll morph, right? Because they'll start to do, in 3 years, people will do what people are doing today, and they'll still be behind the 8 ball and not doing certain things. So it's, which makes it exciting, right? That's why I always liked hospitality, because everything changes all the time. But I don't think we leverage enough I don't think we leverage enough best practices from outside of our vertical that could really help. So what advice do you have for hoteliers, developers and owners out there, and operators who want to leverage creators / influencers to, push their product, push their services, push their properties, but the reason they're hesitant is they don't want to lose their brand voice in the process?
I like to reverse engineer everything. Okay. You need to first start by defining what your story is. If a brand doesn't know who it is, no creator in the world can save them. The best partnerships are not transactions, they're collaborations. You have to work with the creator. Now, when hotels give creators freedom within their framework, you get magic. You get storytelling that feels human, but still reflects the brand's DNA.
That's a good point.
But everything that you do in life, but everything that you do in hospitality marketing, you have to figure out, what do I want to accomplish? And then work backwards from there.
This is what I want. How do we get there?
Correct.
Let's take
Like you can't give the creator the keys to the kingdom if you don't know your brand story yourself.
Do you see any mistakes, as you meet with people that have leveraged this as a tool? Have you seen anyone that you're they make missteps and it causes them to almost be jaded about the experience, where it's I don't want to do that again, but in reality, and maybe it goes along with the fact that they just don't know their own brand, but where they don't understand that hiring a creator, hiring an influencer, hiring somebody to do this for you is not a magic bullet to improving your business. That it does have to be managed in a way, but there does need to be that freedom.
I see mistakes every day. I see good stuff sometimes. That's the shame of the whole thing. It should be flip flop. And that just goes to show you that most properties, they do not have internal social media teams. They do not have full-time people, and that's their only job. They have people that handle social media platforms, but they have 15 other jobs on top of that that are much more important. And by the way, when you get a chance, just post something on Instagram.
Which I find is the equivalent of when people are well, I don't know why we pay so much for social media management stuff. It's my daughter can just post something. It's it's not
that's the worst
that easy.
Yeah.
It's just not that easy. It's
not. I mean, this is a business.
Yeah.
And you have to treat it as such.
Yeah. So where do you feel the line falls for you between being a true ambassador for the brands that you work with and that you see other people work with, as well as in the line between that and simply just being an advertiser at the end of the day? What really is the difference?
Let's talk about my personal and professional life. There's no wall in between there. It's all the same. I am, if I'm awake, I'm working, and it is what it is. So I consider, if I'm talking about something to my friends, I talk about brands the exact same way on social. There's not a Mr. Scott Eddy persona that comes on when I know I'm recording for Instagram. I am very human, very honest, and very authentic when I do everything in my life. And I feel it comes across. If it wouldn't come across, then I wouldn't be continuing to work. Something has to be going right. But I believe that when there is too much of a gap between your how you are normally and how you are on social, I think that gap right there is what creates fake authenticity. And this is why, and there's so much of that out there. This is why the term influencer has a bad name. And this is why I hate that term, because as soon as you say that word, people think egotistical. They just lie to get paid, and all the things, all those words.
Right. Which I would imagine people said about ad agents,
of course,
in the 80s.
Of course, back in the day, sure.
Yeah, it's more of now until we just have a lot more of them. It wasn't it's not a big firm anymore. It's a bunch of independent people.
Everything seems more now because social media is a megaphone. I can post something right now and it goes out to 1 million people.
Yeah, which you never could have gotten from just taking a bullhorn to the city square.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So true. So true. So you have mastered the art of storytelling, though, over the years. You talked about hosting the first travel show on Lifetime. But you've really mastered the art of turning a hotel stay and the experience into a narrative that translates into something that can be, essentially sold and marketed to potential customers. What is the first thing that you look at when you arrive at a property when you're getting ready to do a project?
So for me, because I live in hotels full time, I notice everything. And, for me, storytelling is everything. Before a guest books its stay, they already dreaming about how it'll make them feel. You know what I mean? So I focus on, when I walk into a property, I want to know, how am I feeling as soon as I open up the door? And I really try as best as I can to put myself in the guest's shoes. I spend countless hours in hotel lobbies, just sitting there watching how they interact with people. I think it's really important in my line of work to know that and to understand the process of how a lobby works. You know what I mean? So for me, I just try to be a normal guest every time I walk into a hotel. And I try to notice every single thing. Like, when I walk up to the counter, are they smiling at me? Do they give eye contact? How long is a check-in process? How, do they understand what they're going through? Is it a trainee? Is there a manager nearby? Is there, I notice everything.
Is there something that you notice that's like your number one pet peeve that you just can't let every time if you see it or you experience it, it just like eats at you?
Yeah. Thailand ruined me for life because here, every time an employee passes you, they, Sawadee Kap, they greet you with a smile. They give eye contact. They smile at you. They're smiling at you with their eyes. It's such a warm feeling every time you pass an employee here that it just ruined me for life in every hotel that I go to. If somebody is not smiling and giving me eye contact and saying hello when I pass them, or at least like a head nod or something.
Acknowledge that you're actually in the space, right?
It drives out of my mind. It drives me out of my mind.
It's actually good that you said that because that makes me not feel so bad because that is I can deal with like a front desk agent in a bad mood, like all of that. Like in my head, I can like being from the business, I can like justify it a little bit to myself. But the one thing that drives me crazy is walking down the hallway and nobody acknowledges the fact that I'm like physically here. Like, and I used to joke about, even if you don't want to see me, give me the finger or something. Just let me know that you see me. I don't understand why you just are ignoring. And I always tell people Starbucks, I used to use with my team, Starbucks was always like the gold standard. I felt like here in terms of when you get in a Starbucks line that was super long, they would always make sure, even if you were at the end of the line and you just walked in, somebody was acknowledging you. So, what advice would you give to brands that want to move from, the promotional messaging of just like putting out, stay 2 nights, get 1 free type messaging to really your brand of, true like thought leadership storytelling where it's, displaying that authentic story and why someone should connect with that property and go experience it or have that experience?
I love talking with leaders on the property, whether it's the chef, whether it's the bartender, whether it's the GM, whether it's a housekeeper, whether it's a valet. I love sitting down and filming like a short video clip, talking to them. This is what people want to see. This is what real guests want to see from a property. If you turn your employees into evangelists, that is the game changer. When you're working with creators and they start involving your employees in their content, so the creator isn't the star of the show anymore. Your employees are. That's actually the true win for the property.
Like, talk about authenticity. It's authentic. It's not an actor.
Yeah. And think about this. Think about a guest who just got done watching a video and then they check into your property and then they recognize that employee. Imagine how that employee feels. Like they're on cloud nine.
And it gets that personal connection going so much faster than it would any other way, really. I mean, that's a great tip. I think a lot of people, they try to keep their staff, their associates, their employees out of it. And you're right. Like, why? Like they are just, we always tell them they're so just as much the product as anything else. Like we might as well get them involved 100%. In it. And I'm assuming like as a a creator yourself, like when you're creating those moments to work with them, you probably get excited that when a location or a brand is like, here, we're going to give you some employees to work with. And
100%. Oh, and I don't have to ask for it. Then you're working with the right property.
We have all these, like we do all these workshops where it's like, oh, like you got to like, your staff is so important and they're really just as much the hotel as anything else. And I'm like, but we don't include them in anything. Like you got to include them because they are just as much your product as anything. So moving on to some technology tips, because obviously you've lived in a very evolving world, being like one of the first, what did you say? One of the first 2,000 users on Twitter. You've seen everything evolve. And it's interesting. I always tell people I felt like I grew up in a good time because my sister and I always talk about the funny thing. It's like we started school, there were no computers. Then it was like we had like a computer lab with like the old Apples, and then like, and then by the time she got to college and I got to high school, like, there was internet, there were computers everywhere. And then, I get to college. Well, we won't talk about her age. She's a little older, but, now I look at like my niece and like, I think she had like an iPad or a notebook or something, digital notebook for her textbook. Right. She didn't even have to backpack really, but, you've seen a lot of things change over the years. We'll talk about present day now and then go back a little bit, but, currently right now especially for hospitality storytelling and reaching an audience, what is the platform right now and what's the delivery mechanism, be it a reel or a short or just static content that you're seeing is actually having the biggest impact for your clients and yourself right now?
So everybody always wants to know what's next, what's coming up so they can jump on it early, right?
Right.
Right now, for the past year and a half, LinkedIn has turned more and more into Facebook and Instagram than any other platform. It is no longer a job platform. It is a social platform. So even though my biggest platforms is still X and Instagram, my most active platform is LinkedIn. So I post anywhere from 2 to 4 times a day, 7 days a week. I include my email in the bottom of almost every post. I get emails and DMs. I probably get 300 to 500 a week. Wow. And I get real ROI from LinkedIn. I've gotten 10 clients there this year.
That's incredible.
Now, that's not including the people that reach out for podcasts like you did.
Right.
That's not including speaking gigs. I'm just talking about pure clients to work with.
Right.
So what I'm telling everybody is every hotel, every brand, create a page and get active on LinkedIn. Oh, but it's for business. Okay. Well, for business, who is on the other side of that business posting for them? It's a human, right? Like,
that's a good point.
People think that they forget the human element is everywhere.
Right.
It's everywhere.
Well, even if it is for business, like those business people still want to go travel. Like they have a personal life too.
It does it 100%. They're traveling for business, they're traveling for personal, they're traveling with families. I mean, it's crazy the ROI that's there that people are leaving on the table. So when I tell people that, they roll their eyes and they're like, yeah, LinkedIn's not for me. And I said, we're not talking about for you. We're talking about your demographic. Who cares what you like?
Yeah. Well,
I have this argument. I have this conversation all the time with hotels. They're like, yeah, I'm not really sold on TikTok. I'm like, that's great. You're not selling to you. Like, who cares? You know what?
Yes.
You know, I had a conversation with somebody the other day and they said, why would I want to be on TikTok? I'm not a 13-year-old dancing. And I said, okay, that's fair. But understand that every platform starts young and ages up. Do you know the most active demographic right now on TikTok? 38 to 55.
You know what? Speaking from experience, I can understand that. Yes, I fall in that group, so I would be doing.
So I tell every single person that I meet in this industry to set up a page on LinkedIn, and they laugh at me. Not one person in the past year has done it. And then they're going to come to me in 2 years, just like they did on Instagram in the beginning, and they're going to come to me, oh man, I'm going to set up LinkedIn. Let's go. And then call me 2 weeks later, Scott, I'm not growing. Well, yeah, because you missed the growth. You know how hard it is to grow on Instagram right now? Do you know how hard it is to grow when you have more creators than content? Or no, more content than creators? Right now, there's less content than creators on LinkedIn. That's why your stuff is getting pushed into the algorithm.
Yeah. That's such a good, how did you come to this conclusion? Like, what was it what was the defining moment?
No,
you were there, you saw it. Okay.
Listen, I'm not reading anything in a textbook. You're talking to somebody, I never went to college. I had a C- average in all my school. Like, I was a horrible student, but I get out there and I test and I post and I watch and I, how do I know that if you look at my LinkedIn posts, the most valuable post for me, for my algorithm right now is one image and a long caption. That gets me the most engagement. Yes, they have a video tab now. Yes, they're pushing videos, but they pushed videos initially when they first came out, and then it sort of fallen off. So right now, that's what works best for me, and that's what I do. But how do I know the others don't do well? Because I tried it.
You see the result, and you're getting the results out of what you're doing.
I am in the trenches every day.
Yeah.
YouTube Shorts is also good for depth. So, you can go 3 minutes on a YouTube short.
It's interesting.
I got news for you. For everybody that says attention spans are shortening, yes and no. It's shortening for boring content. So if attention spans are truly shortening, how can we sit there on a Saturday and binge a whole season of a show on Netflix?
Exactly. Like, I watched an entire season of Righteous Gemstones this weekend.
It's shortening for boring content. If you're interesting, listen, I watch hour-long YouTube videos all the time. And I have YouTube Premium, so I download them and I listen to them as I do my morning walks. I listen to YouTube between 1 to 4 hours every single day of my life. That's how I learn. If there's like a social media content conference going on in Asia and I'm in the States, I'm listening to it on delay. If there's like highlights from the, SCIF conference in New York, I'm listening to it. Whatever it is to make me better at what I'm doing, if I can get 1% better every day, and I just did a post about this the other day, I just want to get 1% better. That's it. I don't need to double my revenue every day. Like everybody, everybody shoots for the moon. If you get 1% better every day, if you have that as a goal, you're winning, man.
But would you say that it's also a matter of making sure that, is it quality over quantity? Do you think if you are going to post, if you don't have time to do 3 times a day, 7 days a week, if you do, half of that, but it's of good quality, is that just as impactful?
The most important thing is not quantity or quality. The most important thing is consistency. Okay. Being consistent is the most important thing. So if you can only post 1 time a week, make it good, make it quality, but make sure you do it that one time a week. And if you can increase, do it. The problem is people don't prioritize social media. They still think of it as a hobby, as a nice to have, as a time waster, as, just catching up with friends, being entertained. They don't look at it that it's the most important tube of communication that exists on the planet today. They don't understand that when there's a military coup in a country, that the first thing that they do is shut off the social media because they're afraid they could overturn and the communication gets out of what they're trying to do. So if it's powerful enough to stop a military coup, you don't think it's powerful enough to sell a hotel room? So
it's a powerful statement.
So the biggest problem with people is they look at it as a hobby. What I tell people to do is this: put it in your schedule. 3 times a day, 15 minutes, put it in your calendar, just like it's the most important meeting of your day, and then take those 15 minutes to engage, to reply to comments, which nobody does, and to create new content. Replying to comments, comments is where the ROI lives. Do you understand that it's called etiquette and manners? There's a human on the other side of that comment that took time out of their day to comment. It might have been a paragraph long, or it might have been an emoji. Either way, they took time out of their day to do that. You owe them that etiquette to reply to them.
Yeah, because you're right. And that's where the ROI is at, because those are people that are obviously they are engaged with you because they are actually commenting and they took the time out of their day. So with all of these things and how you have seen the tech stack in this area change over the years, where do you see AI being a benefit as well as a kind of a weight as well, that it's not leveraged properly, or leveraging it properly can either help you or hinder your success?
It's funny because this is the exact topic that we're talking about at that conference next week. AI and hospitality, should you be scared, or something like that. So AI isn't replacing hospitality. It's enhancing it. And the brands that win will be the ones that use tech to remove friction, not humanity. Now imagine arriving at a hotel where your preferences are, already known. Your room temperature, your favorite wine, your pillow type, all personalized. That's not sci-fi. That's now, today. What I think AI is going to do, and people are already realizing it, I think AI is going to make hospitality more human, not less. AI is not coming in to take your job. Now, a person that uses AI is coming in to take your job, because they're using it to remove all the friction jobs that they have during the day so they can get more human on the other stuff.
It's true. And that's why I do see a lot of things, funny enough, on LinkedIn, of all places, about now's the time, learn how to use AI very well. Like, hone that skill, because again, it's not replacing anything, but the guys and gals that know how to use it very well are the ones that'll take your job, because they can really be productive 100%. And actually use it for the better. So Scott, this has been incredible. I have some more questions. I could probably talk to you all day about all sorts of random things. We had dinner. I was actually thinking about this morning. I was getting ready. Like, we had dinner together with a group of people it was last year at the hospitality show in San Antonio. And that was a great time. So I was looking forward to this conversation today, just because I know you're a breadth of knowledge, just your global knowledge too. Just having experienced things around the globe is incredible. Just because you can see it from so many different angles that people typically can't look at it. So I really appreciate this. We all know that you've got more adventures coming up. If you can remind everybody, where can we follow you? so that we can follow your adventures? And also, what's the best platform? I'm assuming LinkedIn. What's the best platform you'd like people to connect with you online if they want to reach out and
LinkedIn,
work with you or get to know more?
Yeah, LinkedIn and Instagram is where I'm most active. I'm at Mr. Scott Eddy on all platforms, actually. But LinkedIn and Instagram is probably my most active. Behind that is probably TikTok.
Thank you so much, sir. This has been incredible. And we'll have you back again, I'm sure. Like, we'll have to just make this an annual thing.
Yeah, for sure. Part 2.
Yeah. Or maybe next time we come to Thailand. I think it sounds like a good plan.
Awesome. That would be so cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. We will be back on Friday with a checkout edition of the Friday of Check-In with Bryan. And don't forget to follow Scott Eddy at Mr. Scott Eddy on all your social media platforms. And we thank you and hope you have a great week. And we'll see you next time.
This episode of Check-In with Bryan is a production of RH Media Productions, hosted by Bryan Fish, executive producer Tyler Alexander, marketing support provided by Sunny Templar. Thanks for checking in. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss this week's Friday checkout coming this Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Reliance Hospitality Global Incorporated or any of its affiliates, partners, or subsidiaries. All content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be interpreted as professional or legal advice.